what's going on YouTube, and welcome back to another Season 7 League of Legends Champion Guide. Today, I'm going to cover mid lane Heimerdinger, aka the Donger, the Revered Inventor.
Indeed, a wise choice.
First up, let's cover Donger's pros and cons. First, he's a champion that makes a pretty damn good split pusher. His turrets combined with his other spells will push the lane incredibly quickly, and if people don't rotate for him, he's going to take towers really fast. He also has some pretty decent crowd control from his E ability, and if he does take a Rylai's Crystal Scepter, his turrets will also slow, which is pretty damn strong. He's also got some pretty good scaling and a lot of team utility. Whenever he's by an objective, he can set up all of his turrets and the enemy's usually not going to want to engage into them. This can get you some pretty easy dragons and of course towers. Now for your cons, however, junglers will love to gank you. You're a champion that's relatively squishy with low mobility, which is exactly what junglers want to gank. The reworked Heimerdinger is also a pretty skill shot reliant champion. Now, you must be landing your skill shots in order to charge your turrets so they actually do their charged beam and do more damage. If you're missing all of your skill shots, your turrets aren't going to be using their beam shot too often, and therefore they're not going to do too much damage. If you can land your skill shots, however, the damage potential is incredibly high. For your masteries, I'm going to go 18 Cunning and 12 Ferocity, grabbing Thunderlord's Decree as your keystone mastery. This will really increase your damage potential and is easily proc from both your turrets and of course your W. In the mid and late game, if you can hit a single squishy champion with your full W's ultimate, you can bring down an enemy and that Thunderlord's Decree will add some really nice damage. I usually like to go for the cooldown reduction on Heimerdinger, but of course you can always go for that magic penetration as well just to increase your damage potential. Both are fine options. For the rest of your masteries, you're pretty much just focusing on increasing your damage as much as possible. For my runes, I like to keep it standard and take Magic Penetration Reds, Armor Yellows, Magic Resist Blues, and Ability Power Quints. The Magic Penetration and Ability Power is great in trades with the enemy champion, and of course last hitting. We then want to pick up that Armor and Magic Resist just so we're a little bit more durable in the mid lane, and we're not taking a ton of damage back from the enemy champion. Now you could also go for cooldown reduction blues as well if you weren't going to pick up 40% CDR from your items, but usually you're going to be pretty fine in this matter. Even if you aren't CDR capped, it's not going to be the end of the world anyways. For your first summoner spell, you'll want to grab Flash. You're a very immobile and squishy champion, and this can be used throughout the game to save your life if you do get caught in a bad position. For my next summoner spell, I really like to take Teleport. This is a great summoner spell because it will allow you to split push and still be able to make it to objectives and team fights. Of course, you also have the option of just using it to teleport gank as well. Now if you're looking for a defensive summoner, then you should consider either Exhaust or Barrier. Both are really solid choices against high damage champions looking to all in you. Barrier is great for predictable bursts, and Exhaust is great for spread out damage. Then finally, if you did want an offensive summoner spell instead, you could take Ignite. I don't take it a ton myself, but if you are looking to snowball in the lane, it is a pretty decent pickup. Now let's kick off your abilities by looking at your passive, Hextech Affinity, which is great for its added movement speed. So very simply, Heimerdinger gains 20% bonus movement speed while near an allied turret or his own. So this is a pretty solid passive because I was in Discord playing a game with a Taliyah main and they couldn't hit Heimerdinger with their Q and they were kind of bitching about the bonus movement speed that Heimerdinger had. As long as you can keep down at least one turret, you will have that bonus movement speed and dodging skill shots is going to be a lot easier than it was normally. That's basically all there is to this passive, just make sure you're within the 300 range of a turret and then enjoy the bonus movement speed. Next, I'm going to cover the ultimate upgrade because each of your basic abilities has their own version of the ultimate, so of course I want to talk about the ultimate before I talk about the abilities. When activated, Heimerdinger empowers his next basic ability, placing it on the same cooldown as its basic form, modifying its damage, and making it free to cast. After Heimerdinger has upgrade active for 3 seconds without using another ability, he can reactivate it to cancel the empowerment and put it on 3 seconds static cooldown. Upgrade only goes on its normal cooldown if Heimerdinger uses an empowered ability. So this is a really strong ultimate, but it's important to use properly. I'm going to be talking about each of the forms on their respective ability pages, but basically you just need to know which one to use in which situation. The one you're going to be using the least would be your E ability, which is your Grenade. All it does is make it bounce multiple times, which can be great for stunning multiple enemies, but it's not going to do a lot of damage. If you're in a situation where the enemy team is spread out and you really need to get those crowd controls out, then you would want to empower your E and stun multiple enemies. If you're looking for more sustained damage, then usually you want to empower your turret, your Q ability. Place it in a spot so it can consistently hit the enemy team and it will output a ton of damage. It can also tank a lot of turret shots, so if you are pushing towers, make sure you drop this. Then finally, if you need to burst a single target, you'd want to empower your rockets, your W. This will do an absolute ton of damage to a single target, and if every rocket hits, it's easily going to kill a squishy target. But now let's look at those actual abilities. So first up would be your turret ability, the H28G Evolution Turret, which can output a lot of sustained damage. So first, passively, Heimerdinger stores a spare part periodically up to a maximum 3 stored at once. When activated, Heimerdinger deploys an H28G Evolution Turret at the target location. Up to 3 H28G Evolution Turrets can be deployed at a time, and deploying a 4th destroys the oldest one. So now, after the rework, you automatically start with 3 turrets, so you can have 3 at the beginning and not just 1. This makes you a lot stronger in the early game than you were before. This does some decent damage, but when you empower it with your ultimate, you instead get the H28Q Apex Turret. This does a lot more damage, but only lasts 8 seconds. In a teamfight, however, since it does 30% of your AP with each attack, it can do a lot of damage. This is the upgrade I'll use the most, unless of course I'm deleting a squishy target, in which case I'll empower the W. As previously mentioned, this turret can actually take a lot of turret shots, so if you are pushing a lane, you can drop this and the turret will target it, so you'll have minions to take the tower. Your W ability is Hextech Micro Rockets, and this is your main source of burst damage and poke. When activated, Heimerdinger unleashes a wave of 5 rockets that converge to the target location and fan beyond its maximum range, with each rocket dealing magic damage to the first enemy it hits. Every rocket hitting an enemy champion grants 20% beam charge to all turrets within 1000 range, up to a maximum of 100% beam charge when hitting 5 rockets on an enemy champion. Enemies can be hit by multiple, with each one beyond the first dealing reduced damage. If you empower this, however, it becomes the Hextech Rocket Swarm. This launches 4 waves of rockets in quick succession and scales with upgrades rank. The total non-minion damage has a 183% AP ratio, so just this ability can usually delete squishies. During the lane phase, the normal ability is great for poking and of course last hitting. As I previously mentioned, if I do need to delete a single target, then this will be the ability that I'm going to empower. Otherwise, usually I'll be empowering my turret so I can have that sustained damage. Also remember that if you have your cursor towards your champion, the rockets will be spreading out, and if you keep it away from you, they're going to be going in one single area. You can use your cursor in different areas if you want to poke multiple enemies or just go for a single burst. Last here we have your crowd control, the CH2 Electron Storm Grenade. It's great for both its AoE slow and AoE stun. When activated, Heimerdinger hurls a grenade at the target location, dealing magic damage upon impact to all nearby enemies and slowing them by 35% for 2 seconds. If the grenade hits an enemy champion, all turrets within 1000 range of the impact will gain 100% beam charge. Enemies at the center of the grenade's impact are also stunned for 1.25 seconds. If you then decide to empower this ability, it becomes the CH3 Lightning Grenade. This will instead bounce 3 times, exploding each time at twice the radius, with its slow increased to 80%. Enemy champions can only be damaged once per cast, but can be slowed and stunned multiple times if circumstances permit. So this of course is a pretty decent ability because it is your main crowd control. As I said before, this is the one I use the least unless I need a very big ranged crowd control. In the lane phase, usually I hold on to my grenade until somebody engages into me so I can stun them in my turrets and then delete them. Of course, it's also going to be pretty good used aggressively. If you can stun the enemy champion, you can empower your W and easily delete them. For my skill order, I first put a point into my ultimate whenever I can at 6, 11, and 16. You'll then need to decide if you want to max your Q or your W first. If you feel like you can easily push the lane and bully the enemy, then you would want to max your Q ability, your turrets. This will put a lot of pressure on the enemy team, and you're going to be very annoying to deal with. Now, if you feel like your turrets were just going to get destroyed and not be that useful, you'd want to max your W ability first instead. You'll do an absolute ton of poke damage, and if you can land your empowered ultimate on a squishy champion, they're going to die instantly. Both are very viable, but usually I go with the Q max. You'll of course want to max your E ability last, but make sure you take an early point at level 3, so of course you can crowd control. Your main combo is pretty damn simple to pull off. You just have to land your E ability to stun the enemy champion so your turrets also get their beam shots, and then land your W ability on the enemy champion. They're going to take a ton of damage, and even if they flash, they may not survive. During the lane phase, you'll want to set up your H28G evolution turrets to put a lot of pressure on the lane. In his rework, you'll now be able to place 3 turrets right off the bat, which is great for pressuring the enemy. You'll then also want to poke with your Hextech Micro Rockets. These do great damage and will charge the beam shot, making your turrets do even more damage, so hit them with as many rockets as possible. Hitting them with all 5 rockets will result in a full beam shot. Now usually I'll hold on to my CH2 Electron Storm Grenade until the enemy engages onto me. If you can manage to stun them in the middle of your turrets, you're pretty much going to be granted a free kill. If you are way ahead in the lane phase, you may as well try to land this on the enemy champion, because if you do, you can follow up with your ultimate rockets and delete the enemy. In teamfights, you'll first want to make sure you have all your turrets dropped as soon as the fight starts. Try to make sure you set them all around the teamfight so they'll be constantly firing. Next, you'll want to try and peel for your carries with your CH2 Electron Storm Grenade. The stun is a great way to get the enemy off your carries and will allow them to do their damage and peel away. Now remember, all 3 of your ultimates are very viable, but usually I'll use my Hextech Rocket Swarm to delete a carry if possible. Your CH3X Lightning Grenade is solid for its crowd control, and your H28Q Apex Turret is amazing for its sustained damage. Use whichever one you need for the situation you're in. Now let's look at a couple of your hard matchups, and first up is Ahri. She's one of those champions that can use her superior mobility to jump into the middle of your turrets, delete you, and then jump back out. You do have some counterplay to Ahri, however. If you do drop a turret when you think she's going to charm, it will be blocked. Hold onto your grenade defensively and try to land it when she does come in for a kill so you can stun her in your turrets and then follow up your W to burst her instead. Next we have Syndra, and she's incredibly annoying because she can use your own turrets against you and hit you with them. Because of this, it's going to be pretty hard to keep up your turrets, so usually I'll go for a W max. Play very defensively and poke her with your W whenever you can, but avoid her stun combo at all costs. This is a very hard lane, and honestly, there's not too much counterplay. Next, another champion that can use your turrets against you, Yasuo. Of course, he's going to be able to dash onto your turrets, which will allow him to easily get onto you. Keep in mind, however, all of your turrets do share the same cooldown, so he can't jump to all of them. Either way, he will be looking to jump onto your turret and then onto you. Against him, all you can really do is wait for him to get into your turrets, stun him, and then follow up the rest of your damage. Like usual, make sure you don't waste your grenade, because if you do miss it, he's going to get onto you, and there's not too much you can do about it. But now let's finish this off with your item build, which starts with a Doran's Ring, health potions, and a warding totem. For your core build, we have the Morellonomicon, Zhonya's, and a Liandry's. The Morellonomicon is a great way to add some early mana sustain, 20% CDR, and a bunch of damage. This of course will also apply Grievous Wounds, which your turrets will also provide because they are a spell of yours. I then like to take the Zhonya's because it is a very solid defensive and also gives you 10% CDR and a bunch of damage. If the enemy does get on top of you, you can use your Zhonya's for a really solid defensive and still be doing a lot of damage because of your turrets. I then like to take the Liandry's because it gives you a pretty solid health pool and also does that really nice burn damage. Of course, even your turrets will also be providing that burn. Now, as an alternative, you could get the Banshee's Veil instead of something like a Zhonya's. It'll yet again give you 10% CDR, a nice chunk of damage, and a really solid defensive shield. Then for our boot options, we have the Sorc Shoes for some nice magic penetration, and Ionian Boots if we do need 10% CDR still. I'll usually take Sorc Shoes myself, but Ionians are a pretty decent option as well. So now for our item pool, first up is the Rylai's Crystal Scepter. This item was nerfed pretty hard a while ago, but it is still pretty solid on Heimerdinger. Your turrets, of course, will apply that 20% slow, which is pretty fantastic. This slow will, of course, make it a lot easier to keep onto enemy champions or peel away if required. Now, as usual on an AP carry, you could go for the Rabadon's Death Cap and a Void Staff. If you're trying to get as much AP as possible to carry the game, then you would need a Rabadon's, and if you do need to get through a bunch of magic resist, you will need a Void Staff so you actually do some damage. Then, if you're wanting to be a little bit more bursty, you could go for a Luden's Echo. Heimerdinger is also not the best roamer out there, so this 10% movement speed is actually pretty nice so you can get to targets. Then finally, if you want to be more of an old school Heimerdinger, you could get the Zz'Rot Portal and just split push your way to victory. It's not something I do too often now with his reworked kit, but it's still viable. For the AP carry build, we'll take that core build, add some Sorc Shoes, and then a Rabadon's Death Cap, and Void Staff. This is a really solid build if you want to be a high damage threat and just put out a massive amount of damage. If you instead want it to be a split pusher, you could replace the Liandry's with a Zz'Rot Portal and then get a Rylai's Crystal Scepter and a Void Staff. You'll still be doing a high amount of damage, but your split push will be even better, and if people do try to come for you, you have the Rylai's Crystal Scepter to slow them and run away or kite within your turrets. Both are really solid builds that I use from time to time, but I definitely prefer the AP carry build. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is everything I've got for the mid lane Donger. Don't forget to check out the video description below for a link to all of my social medias. I do also have a Discord server, so if you do need any additional help or you just want to hang out, then please feel free to join. We have a lot of people in there, and a lot of them love to help anybody who needs it. But other than that, thank you guys so much for checking out the video. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take it easy, and peace.